Hey guys, Karl here, and this is my patch 10.7 update on how to play cybernetics. Before you watch this, please ensure that you have seen part 1 of this, as it is required as a foundation. I will cover in this video what changed, and some frequently asked questions I got on that video. If you have any additional questions, please share them in the comment section. If you liked the video, please leave the like and subscribe, it helps me out a great deal, and with that, let's just jump right into the video. Alright, and here we are. So, as you can see, I won't jump through the variety of comps right now. So for this one, let me quickly bring up my list. I've made a few notes here, what I wanted to go through. So this is the revised final build that you want to aim at if you're playing cybernetics. So on level 9, this is how you want to play it. And as I explained in my other video, and that remains the fact, I think you need to go level 9 if you want to win the game with this comp, or if you want to get second place. There is no way around it. So, as you can see, the biggest change here is that we have the Thresh instead of the Shen. So, because Mana Reaver got a change in this latest patch in 10.7, Mana Reaver you want it in there instead of Blade Master. It's so important on Aurelia. It gives a great debuff to the enemies, and Aurelia just jumps around and basically delays abilities of your enemies. So this is really important. So you want the Thresh in there, and then of course when you have a Thresh in this composition, you also want to have a strong bench, because Thresh is then going to pull in units from your bench. So units I can recommend there is GP2 is always very good. Lulus, you can just buy all the Lulus you can get, even if you have a Lulu 2. An additional Lulu is going to help a great deal, especially if it gets pulled in by a Thresh. And Shogat and Blitzcrank. I think these units are pretty ideal, and you want to have on your bench for the Thresh. So in terms of item changes, as you can see, in my last guide I did a little mistake, to be quite honest. I won't build a static shift on Fiora except for one specific situation. If you don't have a red buff early on, you want to play cybernetics, which is questionable either way because you need the red buff in theory, but you want to still win some of the early game, so a static shift could help there. But again, I don't recommend static shift on Fiora. What I recommend is redemption. I have a video on my channel where I actually win the game because I have 3 redemptions. Redemption is really strong in the cybernetic composition because you want to keep many units alive because they do a great deal of damage. And there are some units that you don't necessarily need. So a Fiora will always die pretty early on in the fight. So a redemption early on her will heal the rest of the team and ensure that you have a longer fight and can deal more damage. On Vi, I think Frozen Heart is very strong at the moment, especially with all the Jins in the compositions of the enemies. Because Frozen Heart, basically Vi jumps into the backline, and even if she doesn't hit one of the carries, because for example a Mystic is in the corner of the map, and then Vi ults onto this Mystic, she still is next to, for example, a Jin, and slows down her attack speed, which in turn also slows down the damage a Jin can deal. So I think in the current meta, Frozen Heart is very viable on Vi. Then, I mean, the rest pretty much stays the same. You still want to stack your Aurelia. In my opinion, the best items you can get on an Aurelia for late game, and let me be very clear on this, is an IE, a Bloodthirster, and an Infiltrator Spat. The Infiltrator Spat is so important because there are many comps at the moment, like Brawler Blaster and like Sniper, where you want to jump onto the backline to deny them a great deal of damage. So that gives you the ability to do that. You can position the Aurelia in terms of that she jumps onto a Jin or a Jinx in the Brawler Blaster. Oh god. Brawler Blaster combination. And then the Thieves Gloves I would save for Echo. In my last guide I said you want to really get good items for Echo. Echo got nerfed now with the 5-cost nerfs. I think at this point, if you get an Echo 2, you want items on the Echo, obviously. So Thieves Gloves is pretty good and pretty viable on an Echo. So I think Thieves Gloves is what you want to say for Echo, and instead give the Vi a Frozen Heart, if possible, of course. And then, of course, the rest of the stuff remains the same. I still don't think you want a Misfortune here. I have seen it way too much now in also high diamond play. I have even seen Masters doing the mistake of playing the Misfortune and then I rank above them with this composition because the Misfortune does not get her full cast off, and then it's just not worth. So this is a bit about items and Thresh, and let me quickly see what I else want to talk about. Yes, so we got a nerf also with patch 10.7 on the chance you get an Echo at level 8. So it went down 1%, which is quite significant. So if you do now an 8 roll down, your chances of hitting an Echo is even lower. So I would say it's even more important that you go to level 9 to do the roll down. And I know that sometimes it just isn't possible because you lack the HP and you need that roll down at level 8. So in these cases, of course, you still have to do the roll down. But I think it's very, very critical that you don't do that if you don't have to. So if you have HP to play with, try to go to 9 and do the roll down then, because the chances are you do the roll down, you don't hit the echo, and that's it, game over. And at level 9, you have a pretty consistent chance of hitting that echo. So please remember to go to 9 to do the roll down if you can, if you have the HP to play with, and buy yourself some time, lose some games, and then go to 9. And if you have the chance to do the 9 roll down, I think what you are aiming for to basically win the game is you need the Thresh 2, you need the Lulu 2, and you need the Echo 2. If you have, and it's not impossible if you play economy, right? I do this pretty consistently. Normally when I play this composition, I always hit the Thresh, Lulu, and Echo 2 if I go to 9. And then now the rest depends on if you are contested with other cybernetic players or not. If the other cybernetic players are already out, I would aim as final unit for an Irelia 3. That is basically what will win you the game. If you have an Irelia 3, that's sort of like an insta-win. So if you have the chance, you might even consider not doing a Thresh 2 or a Lulu 2 because that's costing you money. Instead, focusing on getting that Irelia 3 because that is winning you the game. So yeah, but in general, I would say go to 9, do the roll down, get these units to 2, get the Irelia to 3, and if you have the feeling you can't get Irelia to 3, focus on your bench, focusing on making your bench the strongest it can get. So units the Thresh is pulling in are pretty strong and pretty viable and will give you a certain boost in the late game. Like GP2 is always a very, very good unit to pull in and pretty much secures you the late game win. And I also get asked quite often now the question of transition. You are contested and you want to transition. So my first answer to that is it depends on how badly you are contested. If you still can get all the units in the early game, I think you just have to play the economy game to hit the Echo and the Irelia before the other cybernetic players. But if you feel like you have severely lost the mid game, you lack the amount of money to do the level 9, you pretty much don't have even enough money to do a proper level 8 roll down, I would seriously consider a transition. The problem is it depends on which items you have committed so far. So if we're moving towards the late game and you already have built like a few of these items, there are items that are not really helpful in, for example, a Blaster Brawler build. So normally I would recommend, if you have the feeling that you just need to transition now, go for the Blaster Brawlers. It's still a pretty good comp. And it's pretty easy to transition to that because you basically already have the Vi, you have the Lucian, and potentially you have already a Blitzcrank from your mid game. So that enables you to do a good transition to Blaster Brawler. Yeah, I would say that's the easiest transition to go to in terms of I'm losing right now, I want to transition my build. Normally, if you have the economy, I would say still go head to head, do the level 9 roll down and just outroll the other guy who probably will do a level 8 roll down and might hit an Echo, might not hit an Echo. But the thing is, his power curve is kind of going like this, and your power curve is kind of going like this. So when you go to 9, you get a certain spike, and you will basically outpace him in terms of where you get your power at. So yeah, I would still recommend, if you have the economy, go to level 9, go head to head with this other guy. If you don't have the economy, if you don't have the HP, transition to Blaster Brawler basically. And the last thing is, now of course we have the galaxies. So I wanted to quickly give you a quick insight into how I would play in specific galaxies with this composition. So we have 3 ones: Nicoverse, Little Lake Nebula, and the 125 HP galaxy, which I hate personally, but alright. So the 125 HP galaxy is actually helping you the most here, because 125 HP galaxy means you have an easier time to go to level 9. You have more HP to play with to go to level 9, and that's basically what you want to do in that galaxy. You don't want to do the level 8 throwdown for sure in that galaxy, because you have a lot of HP that you can play with in the late game to go to level 9 and do the big roll down. Then the Nicoverse. So there are 2 options, or rather 3 options. Option 1, you feel like you lack in stage 4 or stage 5, and that's because you don't have an Irelia 2. So maybe you want, because you feel too weak, you quickly want to use the 2 Nikos on Irelia to get a power spike and play pretty relaxed in the mid to late game, so you win out there and don't lose too much HP. If you feel like you are strong enough either way, or you have high rolled in Aurelia 2 for some reason, then you probably want to save these Nikos for later on, because later on you could do two things. You could either 3-star one of the 5 costs in this build, so Echo, Thresh, and Lulu. My best recommendation would be either Lulu or Echo. Or you can save it until very, very late and then try to hit the Aurelia 3. As I said, it's a GG if you hit the Aurelia 3 with good items. So, yeah, I would potentially go for that or that. But sometimes you just need the power spike. And the Lilac Nebula, so you get a 4 cost at the start. It's pretty straightforward. If you see an Aurelia there, you probably want to go for it because it can basically help you throughout the early to mid game. If you can even play 3 Blade Masters and stuff like that in the early game, you're pretty consistently winning, and that's really important to preserve HP. What could also work is a Kale. So Kale is a pretty strong early to mid game champ if you get a Ginju's Rage Blade on her. The bad thing about that is you can't really reuse the Rage Blade on any of these characters. You could give it to Echo, you could give it to one of the others, but honestly, Rage Blade is not the best item in this build. But still, if you use the Kale to win the early and the mid game, and then basically sell it and transition to the full build here, I think that's also a good thing. But as I said, Aurelia has highest priority here because it basically helps you with the cybernetics early on. So yes, that's some updates from patch 10.7. I'm sure I did not cover everything, so if you still have any questions, any comments, please leave them down below. I'm happy to go through them, answer everything. If you want to discuss, if you have different opinions, I always value those, and we can discuss and have an open exchange about why you feel different about certain things. And yeah, thanks for watching again, and see you soon. Bye bye.